And kind of going off some of the regulation, the whole job situation. What are your feelings on the banking system currently, with the banks receiving bailouts and the possibility of more regulation of the banks or even less regulation? What are your opinions on that?
Well, banking is a highly regulated industry. It always has been. It's been very regulated since the formation of the Federal Reserve. Here today, we're 90 years after the Federal Reserve, almost, and we still have a business cycle. We are not going to repeal the business cycle by act of Congress or act of the Federal Reserve. Banking regulation is very good when it's unpopular. In the boom times, everybody feels that, prudential regulation for the safety and soundness of banks is unnecessary. In the bad times, it's already done. The bad times are already baked in the cake. I don't think you can have capitalism without failure. You cannot have free enterprise without the freedom to fail. So yes, people should be free to form new banks, and we have to recognize that some banks are bankrupt. The tradition of keeping alive zombie banks as some sort of bailout is not useful. In Japan, they kept alive whole large groups of zombie banks and created a whole zombie economy. I want to be alive instead of dead. And most people want to live their lives well.
Japan's economy is definitely a zombie economy.
Well, yeah, absolutely. They have spent so much time and effort in trying to paper over the obvious.
Yeah, they've had more than 20 years now. They've had a recession generally. They've just kind of been keeping it going.
That's right. Well, they had a situation where all the major banks were bankrupt, or at least not liquid.
Yeah.
And the Bank of Japan stepped in, and the politicians stepped in to paper over the problem. It's, they call it in the financial industry kicking the can down the road. Well, the road has no end. I'm sorry. You can keep on kicking that can down the road, but it's not a very useful activity. And they've tried Keynesian. I don't know how many stimulus packages they've had in the last 15 years, 18 years. They've tried a combination of big projects, of favored construction groups that built some very exciting infrastructure, that most of which goes not very well used. They've done tax cuts and tax hikes, and they've done a variety of things, but the chief problem is the lack of resolution. In that time, government spending has exploded, and it's gone from less than 20% of GDP back during the boom years to more than 30% now. So a lot of the investments that would have provided a return are deferred, delayed, and distracted by one stimulus project after another. Well, Japan also has the distinction of having an even higher corporate income tax than the United States. We're number 2 in the OECD. Japan is number 1. If you add in state and local, we have a major rate problems compared to most countries in Europe and almost all countries in Latin America. The headline rate is high, and then there's pressure for exceptions. And so to try to enforce this headline rate, we have all sorts of laws about transfer pricing that I don't want to get into. And the president has talked about trying to tax multinational income overseas. And you can understand how people are trying to reform the corporate income tax, and it needs reform in a big way. And the first thing is to start being less ambitious. They need to get back to a rate that is the same as the trading partners. Okay. Otherwise, we'll have wholesale companies that will leave the United States, and they'll take the headquarters job and the treasury job, and all the other people that work in the headquarters and the research units and the production planning groups, and all those people will go overseas. And as well as, now we have all sorts of factories all over the world. Pretty soon the headquarters will leave too. So, they need to be less ambitious, lower the rate. They need to get rid of some of these special incentives and credits and set-asides and carve-outs and all the things that distort taxation, and try just to collect some revenue to run the government. It's that simple. The problem of most things in the federal government is too much ambition and not enough visibility. We talk about visibility and openness and transparency, but when you think about the millions of people who work for the government and the contractors and all the panels and boards and commissions that they have, the various responsibilities, very little of it is open to people who have to work for a living, who have to raise their kids, go to the doctor, have to go to work in the morning. Those things all mitigate against us keeping an eye on what they're doing. So we have a phenomenon of captured regulators and captured boards and commissions where only a few interested parties really set the rules and influence the regulators. It creates more of an inside job. That's the whole populist critique of the U.S. government, is that it seems too much like an inside job. We talk about fairness on all sides of the political spectrum. On the left, they talk about equality of result and people who just don't have enough, and that's important. We can address those issues. But on the right, we also have concerns. We have concerns about rules of the game fairness. You know what I mean? Of having clear, consistent rules that are open and understandable to everybody. Having a level playing field of all people in all industries, having to face the same advantages or disadvantages. And if we abandon that fairness, we are abandoning the major reason why Republicans exist, is to try to create a free and fair republic.